Hey guys, I've prepared 120 slides, so I'm gonna go fast. Uh, the topic of the day is will NFTs and GameFi make a comeback? And what I want to start with is that the previous generation is basically 99% of debt, and there are very cool reasons for it. So I have dug up some statistics. This is actually from last year. It's even worse now. So 88% of the projects saw a token price drop of over 90%. 93% of GameFi projects are pretty dead by all metrics. And the average lifespan of such a project is about 4 months. And on average, the token price of any GameFi related projects have declined 95% from all-time high. So I want to touch on why the previous generation has failed and what can be done so that the next one is successful. So let's look at these charts. Very nice one. You've probably seen some of those projects around. Um, yeah, so like it's not only about tokens. It's also because everything is tied to a token. Once the token goes down, you have revenues going down, you have active users, and all the metrics basically go down as well. So, but if we actually compare it to some projects from Web 2, let's go for Roblox, for example. So you can see something like totally different every day, every year, bit by bit. There is an increase in revenues. But you might say, like, Artem, you're comparing apples to oranges here. Let's compare oranges to oranges. So the price of a skin or an in-game asset of something like Azuki, for example, we haven't seen any sustainability in this at all as well. But if you actually compare it to something like CSGO skins, you can see that the price of it is pretty stable, unbothered, moisturized. And you can go like with a bit more examples. And I can go on and on for that, but basically the takeaway here is the model that we had in GameFi so far was basically destined to fail. What do we need in like one word? So what we need is sustainability. But how do we actually achieve sustainability is totally another ballgame. So first of all, we gotta understand the reasons for this failure. So why is this happening? So I want to touch on why is this model good? So the current model is good because of that little pump over there, right? But why is this model bad? It's actually because of the same reasons. And to understand why, we have to go to basics. So within users, there is two types of motivation. Users have extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. If we talk about extrinsic motivation, which we have perfected in Web3, we talk about money, fame, school grades, stuff like that, extrinsic stuff. And when we talk about intrinsic stuff, it's more like internalized. So it's about satisfying work, meaning, social connections, hope of success. So what is the problem with extrinsic motivation that we love so much in Web3? Actually, a lot of studies show that when extrinsic rewards run out, the motivation falls below the baseline level as it was without any rewards. So if you put it to the chart, so you have two types of motivation, extrinsic and intrinsic. And once the rewards finish with the extrinsic motivation, you have the motivation of the user fail below what it was. So do I have any proof of that? Well, look at any crypto chart. That's first proof. But also there have been a lot of studies done even like 50 years ago. And like, for example, in one of those studies, people were given a puzzle to solve. Half of the group was given a monetary incentive, so they were paid to make a puzzle. And the second group was not given anything. So, and within this experiment, people came out of the room, and and they were starting up, they were saying that the experiment is finished, but they left the room and they were observing these two groups of people. And actually, the group of people which were not given any money, they would continue to solve the puzzle for longer times on average than those who were given money for it. So basically, with them, the attachment to incentives killed their own behavior. Sounds similar, right? So in crypto, we have made extrinsic motivation to go to all-time highs. But how do we actually move from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic one? So to move from there to there, we have to move like from up to down. So more extrinsic type of motivation is I do because it brings me money. More intrinsic is I do it because my friends do it. Even more intrinsic is I do it because I like it. And like the most intrinsic thing is like it's part of who I am. So for example, I play games because I'm a gamer. You cannot really beat that. So how do we really move from there to there? So the answer is pretty simple. You have to apply gamification techniques correctly. But what is correctly, right? To understand how do we apply them correctly, we have to understand a bit of fundamentals first. So who has heard about classical conditioning? Raise your hand. Anyone heard of Pavlov's dog? Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so classical conditioning is when you pair two things together in the brain of an animal, in dog or user or your kids or something like that. So with Pavlov's dog, so when the dog is given food, they would always ring a bell, and it would create a conditioned response in the dog. So every time the dog would hear a bell after some time, it would produce saliva, even without any food at all. So bell rings, food is here, saliva is getting produced. In some other cases, like one of the examples probably a lot of people will understand here is like you get an iPhone notification, you get stressed immediately just because it's associated with work. So yeah, dog will follow commands and get food, and it will produce a dopamine. And if we attach it to GameFi or any type of incentives within Web3, you have a player or user who engages with the core loop, and then it produces dopamine, and you loop it up. So, and this is called positive reinforcement loop. And in games, you might have heard it as dopamine loop. And to actually create this loop within your incentive system, whether it's GameFi or anything else, you have to correctly apply classical conditioning within positive reinforcement as well. And badly applied classical conditioning leads to decrease in intrinsic motivation and increase in extrinsic one. And we don't really want that because of something we call over-justification effect. So this happens in many crypto projects. So as I said before, like when the rewards dry out, the motivation drops significantly if you push for extrinsic rewards. And you can see it all over the place in our industry. So crypto is a classical example of over-justification effect, basically, at this point. And most of Web3 programs are affected. You probably might have have a coin of choice that has done that. Yeah, it's not only GameFi or NFTs, it's DeFi, it's info, social, whatever fi, it's layer 1, layer 2, incentive programs, everything. But of course, we can do better. But how do we do better? So a lot of people right now in GameFi industry say like just make good games projects, but like this is like very vague. Like what do we do exactly? Like how do we make GameFi NFT projects make a comeback? Let's break it down. So the first mistake is actually incentive size. So when you try to create positive reinforcement loops, let's take an example of dog coaches. So when they try to make a dog sit, for example, you give a dog the least amount of reward which will work at the time. So you give a little bit of food once the dog starts producing the behavior, you give it a bit more, and this is how you teach the dog to do something. Bit by bit with the smallest possible reward which is going to work. In the current situation, basically in Web3, what we do have is we gave a dog a mountain of food, and then we are like wondering why the dog is not responsive, basically. So if you look at Web2, actually, so I've put some learning platforms in here, and they all use a concept of points. And all of those points, interesting enough, they're useless, basically. You cannot do anything with those points. But all of these projects have statistics, and they have been running internal experiments and external ones as well. And we know for a fact that these useless XP points, they increase all metrics that are related to retention and motivation of the users by about like 15%. So even though they're useless, they work because of the reason, like because of the small incentive size, like in this number go up, just works. So yeah, even useless XP points works. So this is the first thing. And then the second thing is timing. So reward must be closely tied to the behavior that you want out of your user or your like, anything. So you must tie the action to a dopamine. And again, if you look at Web 2, guys, like you are given XP points for every single small thing that you learn, and it's made in a way that loops you in. So coming back to our like formula, and I want to come up like with a more overarching formula by the end of the speech. So the smallest possible reward should be given immediately after desired behavior. And the third mistake is that the random, non-random or expected rewards are given to people in crypto. And this is pretty bad as well. When people expect something, like in crypto, TGE events, you have like a set event and people are like waiting for it for months and months. Reward is really expected. And this leads to over-justification effect. But unexpected rewards do not crush intrinsic motivation. And we have countless of studies to prove that. And basically the reason for it, why does it work, is that reward is not the main reason for doing the activity. It can like basically make the activity better, but it doesn't form the reasoning for why you're doing this activity. And if you study the literature about, for example, how to create classical conditioning within docs, for example, you have something called jackpot concept. So you feed the rewards bit by bit to the user or anyone, and at one point you give like a huge reward, and it has to be unexpected. So, for example, how we apply it, we have something called treasure chests in our system, and we give rewards to people, but there is a very small chance to earn a large reward. But like it's very clear for everyone that you're not going to get it unless you're like very lucky. And you can see how it changes the motivation of users from extrinsic, which is money, to intrinsic, which is a hope of success somewhere. So coming back to our formula, this is smallest possible and variable/random reward should be given immediately after the right behavior. The fourth mistake is actually a pretty cool concept called currency distancing. So I want to come back to the like one of the first charts we had. Like, why is this model bad? It's not only because of that initial pump. It's actually because of the entire premise of the whole thing. Like all of these prices and like charts, and like we always look at them in crypto, right? And in GameFi, actually, focusing on money might not necessarily be good at all. So Web2 devs have been actually doing this for years and have been trying to achieve this for not even years, decades. So currency distancing is like created to distance yourself away from the currency as much as possible. And it's pretty clear why you do that. The reason for that is not to create over-justification effect, to not create the attachment to rewards itself. And yeah, as I said before, Web2 games have used currency distancing since forever, basically. And what you do with the currency distancing, again, is you detach in-game currency from its monetary value. And you detach it in a few different ways. You detach it in UX, you detach it economically when you structure your system. And yeah, in crypto, in most of the cases, the dollar value of the assets is placed up front. In the main UX, everything is like super with dollar signs and stuff, or Ether. Yeah, and this is how you get to this. Actually, I want to touch on point system a bit. This is actually a step in the right direction, because points represent one more layer between actual monetary value and incentives. So it's actually a progression in the right way. And currency distancing is a subset of a larger thing in gaming in general, and like in incentive systems, we call unnecessary obstacles. And unnecessary obstacles is something pretty cool. Let me explain it to you like by using chess as an example. So you have all of these rules in chess. You have like one figure that is walking like one way, the other figure walking the other way, and it's basically like, why can't I just like go and crash the entire like table and like win, right? Because it's unnecessary obstacles. Yeah, and they are done to actually create dopamine loops more easily because you need to tie the reward to something and you need to tie it immediately, right? And you need some kind of mechanics to make it easy to tie it immediately. And this is why you need unnecessary obstacles. So coming back to our formula, the smallest possible and variable/random reward given immediately after the right behavior, all while distancing from the monetary value of it. And this is basically how we move from this to this, and on the most basic level, and how we move from this to that. And how do we actually use blockchain at that? Yeah, and blockchain can help us in many ways in here, but it can also kill in all the incentives if used wrongly, of course. So blockchain is what it is in essence. It is more efficient value transfer at scale. And the word value is very important here. Value is not always money. It doesn't have to be money. Reputation is value. Attention is value. Knowledge is value. Community is value. And notice it's all of the things I've mentioned here, they are intrinsic things, not extrinsic. And we can obviously use blockchain to enhance the value of incentives, not kill the incentives. Imagine we were having a stick and now we have a AK-47. So we have just a bigger tool right now, which is more powerful than before, but we need to use it in the correct way. I know that people are gonna like listen to this and like just do a TGE again, but that's fine. So in the future, yeah, we will see NFT GameFi come back, but it will be very different from what it was before. So one of the things that is going to happen is that the percentage of the market which is used for fundraising is going to decrease, and the percentage of tokens that are going to be used for incentives will increase. The other thing we'll definitely see is that we'll see more complex economic models. Not just staking, burning, but like a combination of multiple factors. And the reasoning behind it is basically you have to do all of those stuff like currency distancing and other things to actually make long-term lasting user engagement. We'll have better monetization models. We'll have better revenue sharing models, and this is what blockchain allows us to do very well. We'll have better modding and user-generated content incentives. We'll have portability of rewards. Oh, I love this one. Portability of rewards. And like we can make rewards useful across multiple mediums, and the number of applications here is very big as well. And we will see composable incentive systems because we do open source a lot of stuff. In general, we have something we call permissionless innovation within ecosystems of blockchain, Ethereum, and stuff like that. So everyone can build on top of each other and use the similar tech stacks and don't build everything from scratch. Yeah, so yeah, just this is a reminder of like what are the main things on how to properly structure incentives. And in general, we can utilize blockchain a lot better than we currently do. And what I want to get away from here in the end is we can actually utilize full scale of digital or human capital. And I would like you to all think about it and like, let's go build. And yeah, this is the literature that we've used for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Artem. Do we have questions?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. You've mentioned that you believe that NFTs and GameFi will do a comeback, and what do you believe will be the catalyst for that?
Like no particular catalysts, games in general, they take a lot of years to be built. And the idea of GameFi is nothing new, it's been like around for some time. But really good games, they do take a while to build and structure properly. So there will be a few games that will be very popular, that will have a blockchain element in it. And we already can see quite a few like games that like their development stages, they're quite promising. We need to see whether they actually will succeed in the real life. But something like that will be inevitably like getting hundreds of millions, maybe like tens of millions users, yeah.
So basically, you mean you're waiting for this game development cycle to finish and for the nice AAA games with Web3 functionality to pop up, and then it might kind of catch up and bring a comeback of GameFi and NFTs, right?
Yes, yes. And it's not only about games, it's about systems in general. We see that like in any type of field, we have incentives, right? And in any type of field, we utilize these incentives. And you can see how during the years, our industry have progressed towards more complex models. So before we used to just like shovel people with tokens all over the place. Right now we have points, which is like one more intermediate layer. So the systems get more complex. And this is good. And we will see more and more complex systems for special use cases. It will depend on the use case. So like you can probably attach it to DeFi, you can attach it to InfoFi, you can attach it to layer ones, incentive programs, a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So you mean games won't be just games for fun, but they will have certain functionality outside of entertainment?
Like games will be games. There will be like things at the intersection of things, obviously. But in general, it's applicable towards multiple mediums. So that's what I mean. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How do you gamify something which is not a game, or not learning something which is intrinsically boring, or not resembling a game in any meaningful way? I don't know, like a banking application, no, whatever, something really.
I can give you an example of like, so in, you know, Chrome browser. So when your internet goes down, right? You have this little game of like jumping. Like, do you know that game? Like whenever the internet goes down, you have this like dinosaur jumping on the Chrome. So this is an example of how gamification can be used to like improve the user experience in some like very boring moments. Because like when your internet goes down, it's like the most annoying moment ever, right? And that dinosaur with Chrome, it did really well with user retention. So like, you have to identify the most boring points. Like if that part is like of your user experience is very fun already, you don't need to gamify it. If it's boring as hell, if there is some barrier there, you have to gamify that part in particular. And you can do it via many mediums. Like it will have to depend on the actual thing, yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned in your presentation their words lasting impact. Mm-hmm. What is in these words for you?
Like I always strive to build something for long term. I never like thought about anything short term because I'm just like not interested. So when I talk like about lasting impact, for example, what we do is we do education, right? And in our case, what we want to do is not only like make a person learn something, one thing, but also like create a culture of learning so that he's or he or she is interested for the long term and like just day by day improving itself. And like this is how we actually make impact on this world. And yeah, like in our industry, we have a lot of short-term things. And I believe that will change, actually. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
If that's all.
Thank you, guys.
Warm round of applause for Artem.